I'm Dani. Welcome to the channel. On today's episode, we're going to talk about the announcement of Nawat of Miss Grand International getting the Miss Universe Thailand franchise rights. This announcement was first made online and then soon after followed this big press conference event. So first, I'm just going to talk about what went down, give you an overview, and then we're going to talk about and I'll share my thoughts, kind of my impression of everything. First, I want to say not at all surprised by the opening number with the dancers. Nawat is a really big fan of singers and dancers and title holders who can do one or both of those things. That's something that we can come to expect from Nawat, is a lot of entertainment value in his shows. And if you look at it, his organization hasn't even been around for 20 years, and we've seen, honestly, I think really big leaps and bounds in terms of production for Miss Grand International, and there's a lot of entertainment value there, which is why I think a lot of people enjoy watching Miss Grand International, although it is definitely not Miss Universe. I think they all have their place. After this quick opening, Nawat then gave some remarks. Now, this was all in Thai, and Google was not great at translating this, but I was able to pick up a few remarks that I think are notable or important that he shared. So he said, many people may have a feeling of what the context will be for Miss Universe Thailand, that I am continuing to drive and achieve the value of women, including the highest business value, to be a role model for beauty pageant platform. So beauty pageant platform is what Anne talks about. We're going to get back to all of this. He continued to say, Thailand this year will still be committed to finding women who can inspire, but not just beautiful pictures, beautiful walking, beautiful photos. They must have a true spirit inside. This, I'm not sure of the translation, to be slender in identity. I don't feel like that's right. And able to stand on their own feet, creating wealth for yourself and the Miss Universe Thailand and Miss Universe organization. Therefore, the context is not much different. Foundation, we are still the same, but what is added is that we will have to step into the era where we will have to compete in social business in a lot of positives, because the money from social networks and commercial business is an important factor for all organizations in this world. And today, who came to speak on behalf of the Miss Universe Thailand organization can be fully told that it is not easy to summarize today. You can tell that Google's having a tough time. And standing on this stage, it is important that we work in parallel with the Miss Universe organization. And the most important thing is that this person is a person, I believe he's referencing the new title holder, who is open to be a person who can understand in the context of beauty pageants. She has to have many skills in many points, which will be outstanding skills. Then after this, Anne had some remarks, and it was this pre-recorded video. In this video, it was a general just announcement, right? Like, this is happening, congrats to Nawat. So what was interesting though is Anne had said and made note that Miss Grand International is a publicly traded company on the Thai Stock Exchange. So put a pin in that. We'll come back to everything. Then Anne actually appeared on stage and gave a live speech. And from what I could tell from Google, which once again, not that great, from what I took away from that, it sounded like Anne was just making general remarks about this move. Some references to the history, the 74-year-long history of the Miss Universe organization. She made some compliments to Nawat about his experience and leadership skills, and then talked about how Miss Universe will be held in Thailand this year. The Thai people are excited, and this is a great opportunity for Thailand to be able to, show their skills to the world, show their talents, and basically Thai excellence to the world. Then the contestants were presented, and I'm actually going to devote a separate episode to our contestants because I feel like they deserve their moment to talk about that. So stay tuned for a later episode. Now I want to give my overall thoughts about this, but I feel like it's important to talk a little bit about the history. So before Anne was able to purchase the Miss Universe organization from IMG, there were also rumors swirling around that Nawat was going to purchase Miss Universe. Now, I cannot confirm if Nawat ever placed a bid, but there were those rumors, and a lot of times there's a little bit of truth to those rumors. So knowing that and remembering that, it's not a huge surprise for me to see this happening. Now I want to talk about the cons and the potential conflict of interest that people are talking about online. This is kind of a unique situation, but also it's not unheard of. and I'll explain. What's unique is that technically Miss Grand International is a competitor of Miss Universe, right? A big international pageant. But what's not unique to this is that MGI itself is a production company. So there's like the part of MGI in terms of the production that produces Miss Grand International and produces Miss Grand International Thailand. Like they're kind of two separate things in a way. So when you see MGI in this context, it doesn't necessarily mean like Miss Grand International, the title holder, right? Like the pageant. It's in reference actually to the production company. So now MGI is going to be able to have the production rights to Miss Universe Thailand. That is why it's slightly unique, because technically MGI is a competitor. It can get a little bit confusing, but the fact is that for years there have been multiple production companies that held rights to multiple international pageants. So we've seen this in the past for Bini Bining Pilipinas. For years, Bini Bining Pilipinas held the rights to Miss Universe Philippines, so the winner of that would go to Miss Universe Philippines, but then they also held the rights to pageants like Miss Globe, Miss International, and others throughout the years. So this is not something that is new. Now, when it comes to conflict of interest and why this situation is a little bit different from others of the past is that, you know, in the past, there would be a production company that, yes, would hold these rights to multiple organizations, but that production company was not your competitor. That production company, you know, was paying other organizations for franchise rights to those pageants. It wasn't like the guy at the top, okay? So that is where I would say the distinction is. And what's interesting here is to allow this to move forward, I think, because Nawat is still essentially a competitor and there is always proprietary information. Now, granted, you are going to sign contracts and NDAs, and there are clauses that would and are supposed to protect Miss Universe from, you know, anybody coming in and stealing, you know, this behind the scenes knowledge of their organization to benefit or to steal clients, for example. Like, those are common things in contracts, but does it mean that people always adhere to those things? No. So I think it is a really big risk in that sense. The other side to this that people are very concerned about is that Miss Grand International, being this competitor, it really is its own thing. At Miss Grand International, there's not really a judging panel for interview and for finals. It is very clear, and they are transparent about this though, which I appreciate the transparency. It's Nawat, it is Miss Teresa, I believe her name is, who is, I forget, president, CEO, something. She has got a large role in the organization. And then usually your outgoing title holder, they're sitting there in those interviews. And basically Nawat is playing this key role in selecting the title holder, which is why a lot of people will refer to Miss Grand International as a cooking show. But I believe as long as we're being transparent about the way that these title holders are being selected, then choose your title holder however you would like to. The fact is that anybody can really start a pageant organization. So if you don't like it, and if you want to do it a different way, do it a different way. That's exactly what Nawat did. He created his own organization and he selects his title holders how he sees fit. Now, I do understand the concern of a lot of pageant audiences and like, well, is he going to be picking the next Miss Universe Thailand then? I don't know. I do not know his role in this and how he's going to choose to run this organization. And I do feel like those are some valid concerns, because that's part of what makes these organizations very different, is the way that they select their title holders. And I personally love that we have different pageant organizations. I love that each organization is their own thing, has different things to offer, looks for a different type of title holder. Yeah, I believe that competition breeds excellence, and I think it's a great thing to have multiple organizations and choices for contestants. But it is a little worrisome though, right? And you just kind of cross your fingers and hope that the things that are occurring at Miss Grand International are not going to bleed into the Miss Universe Thailand organization. Now we need to go back to some of his remarks that were made, because here is where I feel like the changes are really going to come, and I don't want y'all to be surprised about this, but this is something that I have seen for pageantry in general, even from the time that I was competing at Miss Montana USA back in like 2016, 2017. I saw the writing on the wall, and that's when I realized how important social media was going to be for pageantry moving forward. And it's why I really started applying myself with whatever knowledge I had at the time to improve my social media, so that when judges saw it, that it would reflect positively on me. I can guarantee you everything from that time that I was competing back then, that it was highly curated for the judges, because that is the time when they started asking for our social media pages. And I had a feeling if they're asking that the judges were going to see it. But listen to Nawat's remarks here. He said, "We are still the same, but what is added is that we will have to step into the era where we will have to compete in social business, social media, in a lot of positives, because the money from social networks and commercial business of sale of products is an important factor for all organizations in this world today." So here's what I think is coming. A big part of Miss Grand International and winning that pageant is proving to Nawat that you are popular in your country. He cares about your fan following online going into the country. That's why our winners already have large followings going in. They're having, hundreds of thousands to even million plus followers going into Miss Grand International. And you can tell that that is part of their pitch in the interview. That is part of what Nawat is looking for. And he's very transparent about that. This is what he values, because he knows and understands that these big followings can generate product sales, which they can. We see that in celebrity and influencer marketing. He's not wrong in this. But I feel like the downside here is that pageantry was not about pushing products and sales. Like, that wasn't, this original idea. And yes, it has evolved over the years, but what I've always liked about pageantry is, and this is not a quote from me, I saw it in the Hulu documentary, is that pageant democratizes access to fame. And I like that. I like that women from all over the world, no matter where you're from, that, if you work really, really hard and if you develop the skills necessary to be a title holder, that you can win. I don't love the idea of social media playing a huge role in who is selected as a title holder. I think you can make it some part. You could even make it a scoring component if you want to, because now part of the role of being a title holder is often managing your own social media accounts in a way that would be beneficial to an organization. I feel like it can be considered, but I don't feel like this should be the main driving factor, especially if you're brand new in pageantry, like you don't know anything that's going on. I feel like every young woman should still have a fair shot at that crown, even if she does not have knowledge of social media, even if her goal is not to be a social media influencer. Pageantry should still be for you. That's my personal opinion. Now, if that is how Grand International wants to make themselves different from every other pageant, go for it. But I love the idea of the Miss Universe organization staying in its own lane and not basing your winners and your selection off of that, or that not being a primary scoring component. But like I said, I've seen the writing on the wall for years, and this is something that I've shared with my own coaching clients for years. I've told them to prepare and to get ready for this, especially if they want to compete in any large international organization. Now, I do want to talk about some of the pros here. Nawat is known for his great presentation and production, so I don't think we're going to have any issues with that for Miss Universe Thailand. I don't think we're going to see a decline. I mean, just look at this press conference. Just look at the dancers. We're not going to see a decline in production. No. And I don't think we're going to see any kind of decline in her year of reign. Go check out my episode comparing the reigns of these big international pageants, so World, Universe, Grand International, Earth, International, Supranational. Go check that episode out, because you're going to see what I'm talking about. Nawat offers a platinum level experience for his winners, and not only his winners, the top 10 and the top 5. So I think Miss Universe Thailand is going to have a ton of prep, a ton of support. She's going to have a great time, but the type of title holder they're looking for might be really different. My other thoughts are for anybody who's shocked about all of this. I really think that for Nawat, because he's a businessman, that if it makes money, it makes sense. So regardless of any of the opinions and kind of thoughts that him and Anne or anybody in Universe have kind of thrown back and forth at each other over the years, a lot of that is kind of, I think, the idea of no press is bad press. So it's like people are like, how could he say certain things about Miss Universe but then go and do this? And it's like, because he thinks that it's going to make money. I mean, simple. Now, I do want to make a couple of comments about the business and the financial side of this. So remember that Anne purchased the Miss Universe organization from IMG around 2022. I don't know exactly when the papers were signed, but it was reported that she purchased for around $16 million. It's my personal opinion, being a contestant and watching the pageant over the years, that in 2022, when that sale fully went through, that $16 million was an over-evaluation of the company. The reason that I felt this is because at the time, IMG, when they signed on, they were producing Miss Universe and Miss USA. So they started these productions beginning in 2015 with the Miss USA pageant, and then later the Miss Universe pageant, so on and so forth. I had a phenomenal year with IMG. They were doing a great job. We had the historically longest runway, 75 feet long. Our finals was in a coliseum. It was almost, if not sold out. I mean, it was insane to compete there. It was packed. It was like the absolute, the ultimate dream. Incredible experience. Then in 2019, I attended Miss USA, and I felt like it was this major downgrade to go to Reno and to shrink the venue. And back then the venue was still able to be packed. It appeared to be sold out. But what was interesting is that when I was walking into that pageant, they had this kind of like pre-cocktail event before the show, and everybody was there chit-chatting. And I'll never forget, I don't remember who, but I'll never forget that somebody said IMG is looking to sell Miss USA and Miss Universe. And then it clicked, and I was like, that explains the major downgrade already in terms of the production and like the experience for the title holders, in contrast to Shreveport versus Reno. I mean, it was a glaring contrast. Then I went to Miss Universe that year as well, and that was held in Atlanta, Georgia at the Tyler Perry Studios. Also, I felt very big downgrade from the production in Thailand to the production in Atlanta. Was it still lovely and beautiful? Yes, of course it was. But if I'm really looking at it, it looked like they were spending significantly less. Now, also keep in mind, in about 2020 is when Crystal Stewart, for the first time ever, they announced that she would be the president of Miss USA. What does that mean? That meant that Crystal Stewart was then paying a franchising fee to the Miss Universe organization, so they were already increasing that profit while at the same time offloading the production costs of the Miss USA pageant. And I was like, this is making so much sense. They really are prepping this organization for a sale. They are trying, in my opinion, from the outside looking in, I thought that what they were doing was making their financial statements look more appealing. So let me give you a highly symbolized answer. Let's imagine you invest $5 million into the production of a pageant, and then that pageant makes you $10 million, but at the end of the day, you still have to subtract the money that you put into that show. So 10 million minus 5 is $5 million. So you're netting $5 million of profit here, right? Not a bad day. But now let's say that you want to prepare to sell and you want to make it look like your company is more profitable than it really is. So you're going to do that only one of two ways. You're going to increase your sales or your services sales, depending on what kind of business you are, or you are going to cut any of your overhead costs so then it looks like you're making a little bit more money than normal. So an example of this would be, let's say instead of investing $5 million into an insane production, now you're gonna invest $2 million. You're gonna really cut costs. You're gonna run a skeleton crew so that at the end of the day, you're still gonna, you're gonna make your $10 million from your show. Okay, at the time, you make your 10 million minus 2 million upfront investment is $8 million. And that is what you're going to see on your financial statement. And if you're looking at it from a year after year standpoint, you could really make your company look quite successful. If you're cutting these overhead costs, even if your pageant's not actually really producing any more money, like there's no new revenue generators in your business plan. And so when I was watching all of these things from 2018, 2019, 2020, all of this, that was my outsider's perspective of what was happening with IMG. This is why I really feel like Anne overpaid for this organization. And I don't work there. My gut feeling is that Anne and her team came in and they started realizing how much more money it would cost to produce these pageants and keep up that revenue stream. And I think that Anne realized it's like, oh man, if we do all the calculations, it's gonna take a lot longer than I thought to earn back my $16 million investment. Like this is gonna be a long time, because she realized it's like, not only did I put in the 16 million, but now I have all the production, I have all the overhead costs, and I want to shorten that length of time to get back my initial investment. So I think that what has happened over the years is they have been prioritizing short-term revenue streams at the cost of long-term success. If The other thing to note is that what we've just seen in Thailand is also what happened in India. It's also what happened in Indonesia. We had longtime production companies that lost their franchise rights and were awarded to somebody new. What I believe is they're really open to new bids from new people. And we also, I think, saw an example of this when they implemented 130 countries at Miss Universe. Now, at its height, before this 130 countries competed and received these franchising rights, prior to that, there was only something like 90 or so countries ever that had competed at one time at Miss Universe. So I feel like all of a sudden they were like, how do we make more money? We allow more national directors to hold these pageants. And I think that because of that, they've really been shortcutting the vetting process of these national directors with the idea of, we're just going to onboard all of these directors. We're going to start raking in all of these franchising fees, right? Because we saw an increase of, let's just say, about 40 new countries competing at Miss Universe. That would be an insane amount of growth. I think for any companies that were of the size of Miss Universe, that's like opening 40 new storefronts for a brand, right? When prior to that, you were only maybe opening 2 or 3 per year, right? You're going to like 2 to 3 to like 40. I mean, that's a huge leap. And I feel that because they were able to accomplish 130 countries within a 1-year time span, they were shortcutting the vetting process. And I believe the perfect example of this, and there's many more, is look what's happening to Miss USA. They accepted the highest bid for that organization. They gave this organization to somebody who's never produced shows of this caliber before. And then we're seeing for the first time ever in the history the resignation of Miss Teen USA, Miss USA, and now we don't even see Miss Teen USA or Miss USA, the newly crowned ones. I mean, there have been a lot of historic events, and they're not positive historic events for the organization. And I feel like it's because the vetting process has been shortcutted. And I'm telling you, it's happening in other countries because I'm listening to you all. I'm listening to your messages. I'm getting the DMs from the contestants telling me about their negative experiences at their national pageant and the difference between competing now and when they competed for other production companies in the past. I also feel like Anne accepting the deal for Raul taking over 50% of the Miss Universe organization made a lot of sense for Anne's positioning as well. Anne's like, how am I going to make back all of this money? Anne sold 50% for $20 million. Once again, I think an over-evaluation of the company in its current state. Not to say that there's not potential, but in its current state. And now I feel like because everybody's like putting all of this money in, they're like, how do I get my money back? And so they're trying the short-term revenue, and what they're really trying to push here are products. And the reason that I think that Nawat is very attractive to and the Miss Universe organization is because that's what Nawat's been doing pretty much from the beginning. Nawat puts his contestants in his swimsuits. He has them constantly marketing all of the products, and he's always looking for this spokesperson, and he's always asking the girls in the interview, how are you going to make me more money? How are you making Miss Grand International more money? Like, that's been his driving force, and he's grown exponentially in about a decade. So I also think that Anne is looking at this, and Anne's like, wait a second, this is our idea for producing more revenue as well. We want to go the product route. We want to make these contestants and these title holders essentially these mini brand ambassadors of every product that we want to sell. We just want everybody selling product. Like, that's what they're going to be interested in. How are you going to be like mainly successful doing that? By focusing on the ladies who have the biggest social media followings. It just makes sense, and it correlates. Also, if you listen to my episode where I went to the Miss Universe office's opening, Raul talked about the goal for Miss Universe is to be a publicly traded company on the New York Stock Exchange. Well, Nawat has already done this. MGI is publicly traded in Thailand already. That happened this year. So in my head, I'm thinking they're probably imagining we have stuff to learn from Nawat. He's already been successfully implementing all of these things. If you look at it, he's bringing in more views online for Miss Grand International. There's been times where Miss Grand International had more followers with Miss Universe. I mean, they're kind of like toe-to-toe in terms of social media, which is very impressive. If you look at a 74-year history versus a history of about a decade, that's impressive what he's been able to do. My gut says that they want to learn from Nawat, that they want to see him implement their idea of pageantry, platform, and products at Miss Universe Thailand. They want to see how he does it. So he's kind of like market research here, and what's great is that not only is he paying them for the franchise rights, he's the one responsible for the production. So in that sense, like, they're making money, they're not putting money out, and at the same time, they're gonna be like, let's see what he's doing, and can we take this model, that's what I think, can we take this model that he implements in Thailand and can we implement it at every other national pageant? I think that they have the idea to sell the products, but the products that they're selling are in a highly competitive industry. We're talking about beauty and fashion, very difficult industries to break into. And then there's the entrance barrier of, with each of these countries, if we're talking about beauty products, you have to be able to legally sell these beauty products. And every single country has so many laws when it comes to cosmetic sales and what you're allowed to sell in these specific countries. So I feel like they're hitting this roadblock where they're like, okay, we want to sell these products in a highly competitive industry. We're gonna get these products made on Alibaba so we can have exponential markups, right? Like, it makes sense in your head. But the problem is, I think it's like consumers aren't dumb. And I haven't seen any of these beauty influencers review these products. I have a feeling that because they're Alibaba products, that if influencers did review these products, they would be highly critical of them. And that wouldn't be good for business. When I saw them launch the products and saw that they're available on Alibaba for like $1.90, for example, for a lip gloss, but you know, they're selling the lip glosses for, I don't know, between 20 and 30 bucks, right? So they kind of go for now across the board. And I was like, why would somebody buy from you when they can just get the same thing for like $2 on Alibaba? And I just don't feel like that's the way to break into the cosmetics industry at this point, personally. That's my opinion. So I feel like they had the idea for products, and then once they committed to it, they realized, uh-oh, there's a lot more barriers to entrance than we even imagined, but Nawat's already doing it. So if Nawat's doing it, it's possible. So let's work with Nawat to accomplish the exact same goals, essentially. But it would not surprise me if moving forward that this is Nawat's very first foot in the door. I wouldn't be shocked if he took over other national organizations to increase his revenue, and I certainly wouldn't be surprised if Raul and Anne decided to sell their shares in Miss Universe and allow Nawat to buy them out. Wouldn't shock me. Not saying that that's what people are saying at all, by the way. I'm just saying, like, when you see these things happen in business, you're like, yeah, I could see that. It would make sense. So these are my thoughts about what's going on, and there's a lot of them. Of course, I will continue following this and keep you updated. I'm also excited to watch Miss Universe Thailand because their contestants are always amazing, always incredible. It'll be a different experience, but I'm excited to see it. So stay tuned for lots more updates and let me know what you want to see on the channel next.